Welcome to TopstepTV, everyone. We have a very special guest on the London session. Everyone, welcome Coach Ray. He's joining us all the way from California. It's very late for him, so I do thank you for being here. Ray, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you, Dee, for having me.
It's a real pleasure to see you. So we've
Of
known
course.
each other for a while now, right?
Yeah, fair number of years, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So great to see you doing so well with your stop hunters. So we're gonna have a look at some markets today to try and find some trades and just to
Mhm.
have a chat about your way of doing things, my way of doing things, and I think it's going to be
Mhm.
pretty interesting for the viewers as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So let me just do some plugs here so we can get that out of the way and then we can crack on. You know how
Okay.
it goes. All right, so we have a couple of new segments that we're doing. We have Trade Live on TV. So if you can now sign up to Trade Live on air with the Topstep crew during the main broadcasts, and we have two opportunities. First one is Trade with Topstep. So even if you're not in a combine, you just want to ask us questions and maybe even get feedback on your performance through the performance stats, you can do that now. So I'm going to drop a link for that sign up. Yes, it is Coach Ray, chat. That's right. All right, and our second segment is Pass with the Pros. Now, you've seen us do that. If you're close to passing your combine, come and join us to help you push over the finish line.
Mhm.
Stanley has done that. We had Keegan. And yeah, I mean, it's a very fun segment. Ray, have you done Pass with the Pros at any point? Have you had
N-
someone?
No, well, no, not really. I mean, actually, I mean, I was navigating from Coach O to Coach U, and I mean, I passed the combine probably a month or two with working with you. So
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, you were
yeah,
you were quite sneaky because we started working together, and Ray didn't tell me he was doing a combine at all.
no,
And then,
no.
like literally, like a month into it, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I passed the combine," and this
Yeah,
was like
yeah. You're the
2019.
final. I guess that you were the kind of final straw. I mean, I guess I did trade with a pro. So
Yes, well, there you go. Yes. I helped Ray get over the finish
yes,
line. Now,
yes,
you have one of the oldest live accounts on Topstep, from what I hear, which is quite an achievement considering
yes,
how quickly
yes,
people blow out.
yes,
Something that people don't know about you, right?
yes. I do. Yeah, it's something I guess I'm quite proud of the fact that I once I passed the combine and there was no XFA version
No.
at that moment in time, and so I became funded. And I've had that funded account now for four plus years, 4.5 years, somewhere in that range, right around the time that we were working together. So
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a long time now. So yeah,
yes,
such a great achievement. Never mind the leaderboard and stuff. How many of those people actually keep the same account for 4 years? You know,
correct,
that's
correct,
just amazing. All right, let's
correct.
have a look at your screen now and what's
Yeah,
going on.
absolutely.
So tell us what are you focusing on right now?
Yeah,
I know
so
you don't trade London that often, but
no,
we're
no, I
gonna give
do,
it a
I
go.
don't. Yeah, so I consider myself a little bit of a hybrid. D, I mean, I do a little bit of everything. One thing that I guess when I was working with you, learned a lot about supply and demand and price action and levels such as average daily range and things of that nature. And then Ho kind of introduced me to market profile. And so I've kind of taken a little bit of a hybrid of all these approaches. You can see here I have, let's maybe open up. I do see a little bit of interest here on the crude oil, I guess. But in any case, my main focus is initial balance, okay? And I'm looking at areas, especially when we exceed initial balance in one direction, then I feel like either we have an opportunity for, I'm a big arrow guy, so I'm gonna see if I can find my arrow here. So as long as we stay above initial balance, I feel like we have potentially an opportunity to exceed, especially if we get some momentum. If not, then we have a potential, as you call it, but failed auction, right?
Yeah.
We've looked for a reversal through this area.
Hmm.
So I do a little bit of, I would say it's location first. We have initial balance, we have value area. I usually draw the volume profile for the prior day, but given that it's London, I kind of did a hodgepodge of volume profile here on the right. And this area right here would be my value area. And I started this actually as kind of more of an experiment, but that's how it plays out here for London. I usually do a fixed range volume profile for the prior session in New York. So I trade generally New York is kind of my session. So, and then look for the same windows. One thing I learned from you is also time is a level, right?
Yes.
Uh, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern time is kind of where is go time, right? That's when we have with the European option expiration,
Hmm.
and that's when I really start in earnest to look for my opportunities. So I have a ADX indicator here that supports my momentum. So we have the green line, which is the positive, and we have the red line, which is the negative, and this blue line is the momentum.
Yeah, so
Um,
I got that from Robert because he uses ADX in his trading,
yeah.
especially now that he's trying to do YM and stuff. But so I prefer the DMI though. So I
Okay.
decided I was going to put that whenever I'm working with Robert so that I can see what he's looking at. And it is
Correct.
helpful if you're not sure whether like there's momentum and stuff. And for
Correct.
me, because I don't know whether you remember, but I always had this problem of exiting trades
Yeah.
because, most people have a problem of staying in profitable trades. I
That's
have
true.
like completely the opposite problem where
Oh,
I
okay.
used to be a swing trader and then I find a good, let's say, sustained auction, and then I
Hmm.
just want to stay in it until the cows come home. But that's
Right, right,
not
right, right,
really how things work.
right, right.
So I've actually found that the DMI on like a 100 tick chart along with some moving averages, they're actually
Hmm.
pretty helpful in getting me out of the trade. And yesterday was a prime example of that, where I didn't really want to hold trades for too long. I was actually pretty tired from my flight the previous day, and I
Uh-huh.
just kind of wanted to grab some cash out of the markets and go and sleep.
Right.
So what I did, I was using the DMI and my 9 EMAs that I have 3 of them,
Hmm.
just to effectively look for that initial push. And then as soon as it sort of slowed down a bit, as soon as I saw the ADX falling, I was
Yeah.
out. I was
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and it was great. It led to a couple of partial failed auctions. One was on crude oil, the other one was on gold, and I
Yeah.
was done for the day. I was like made 511, and then obviously I'm
Yeah.
copy trading now as well, and that
Excellent.
was like 2K for the day. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
great. Now I
Excellent.
sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last thing that I look at here is kind of like instead of looking at order flow, I look at a volume delta. So that also gives me a sense of, do we have volume following the move, right? So
And is
that's
that in
what
trading
I have.
view?
Yes, this is on TradingView, correct. Yeah.
Okay, talk to me about how you use Delta because I'm very interested in that. I know Hogue uses it a lot.
Yeah.
So what would be your
So
signal?
my signal would be, well, actually, it's more of a secondary signal. The primary signals are where location and exceed the price. But then what I'd like to see is something along these kind of lines where if I'm in a move, kind of like what you were saying earlier, I'd like to see volume kind of, these volume delta bars. And really, this is a measure of uh, buyers and sellers, right? And the idea is that if we have more buyers, then we'll get green bars. If we have more sellers, we have red bars. And if we have an ascending, this in particular, if we have it aligned with price, that's actually quite nice to have volume coming into your trade,
Yeah.
right?
So as
So
something
that's
is
when I
breaking out, if you see volume rising, that's positive for the
correct,
breakout.
correct.
Okay.
And if I
Okay.
get each volume bar increase in size, then that helps me kind of like you were telling me that yes, there's no reason to exit this trade, right? You have volume now. If I see something like this, where you get a red bar below, it says, well, maybe it's time for you to exit stage right,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it's more of a secondary indicator. I don't necessarily see it as a primary. But once I'm in a trade, I would like to see volume kind of increase.
So
What
it's
we
a
like, what
supportive
we actually
factor.
see is not always what we get, but that's the hope.
Yeah. So the context needs to match whatever is
Correct.
happening as well. So
Correct.
if you're looking for a
Correct.
breakout and you don't quite get that, and
Correct.
you see Delta printing a red bar,
Correct.
that means
Correct.
it's a no-go, if I'm
Correct.
understanding
Yeah. So
correctly.
something like this here, right?
Yeah.
Even though you did get a little bit of a breakout, well, you got a bunch of overlapping, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
VWAP, when you get VWAP in a kind of an overlapping kind of situation
Mm-hmm.
where you get price go above, price go below, price go above. Well, that's probably not a directional trade that you can
Yeah.
take there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Similar to here,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, London is full of fake outs always because it's not the main session for the products that we have. And
Correct.
that's why I'm a little bit more careful with any sort of breakout trading. Obviously, I prefer DAX, but that's on, I don't know when we're going to get that, probably next year. We have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So Greg says, is DMI on Topstep? Yes, DMI is on Topstep. So if
Yes.
I get to my screen here, this is the DMI indicator. So you can just look for it in indicators and just go DMI, and there it is, directional movement. I do have my settings, and somebody's asked about your settings on the ADX Ray as well. But my settings on the DMI use the I believe the histogram. No, the columns. I use the columns because D is not a spring chicken, so D has some trouble with seeing things. So D needs a lot of visual cues. Now, Ray, what are your what settings do you use on your ADX?
Yeah, pretty much it's defaults. I don't really. There's nothing special. There's a indicator that I use here. Well, this here, I don't know if you see my screen now. You do.
Yeah, yeah.
I have ADR levels by Diademi. That gives me my daily ranges. And then I've been using this indicator here, this top one, ADX and DI
And
right
DI.
here, 39,000. But I'm not even going to try to pronounce this person's name. So
Yeah. Don't butcher it. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's basically what I use, and I really use it at defaults. I don't, the inputs, the length here is 14, and I use the defaults. I don't really change it much. So
Yeah, so I have changed my defaults on DMI, and by the way, you can get the ADX indicator on TopstepX as well. So
correct.
here it is. So you just go AD, and it says average directional index. That's what it is. So if that's what you want to use, it is available there as well because it's a white label trading view platform. Now the DMI, because I use it on such a small time frame, just to see that, I almost use it as a replacement for Bookmap because sometimes when I'm running a whole bunch of things, especially if I'm traveling, I can't really run Bookmap because it's very expensive on the RAM and CPU. So I need something else to give me that feel for when the movement is really happening. And the DMI is kind of a replacement for that for me. So I do use it on 5 and 10 periods. So my setup is pretty small, pretty fast. So DI length is 5, ADX smoothing 10, and I actually use it on a 100 tick chart. So that's what I use it for. But it doesn't mean that, everybody should be using that. So try it, see whether it's useful for you as always, and then figure out whether you can add it to whatever you're doing.
Yes.
All right, so let's see what we've got. Questions. White Shirt Club, apparently. Yes, that's right.
Well, yeah, we did not compare notes on this one. This was purely coincidental.
It is, yeah. Honest to God, we did not talk about what we're going to wear.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Yes, DAX, please. Really hope it will be available on TopstepX soon. I doubt it because they keep pushing it. It was like June. Then we had it for the end of September. Now it's end of the year. So I don't know how much priority they actually have for the European markets. But yeah, as always, guys, if you want to push DAX into the top of the planned works, we need to upvote it. I keep saying this. We want DAX. We need to upvote it on TopstepX.
Right.
So there is a Eurex post that currently has 122 votes. Now, if you want Eurex, we really need to get this to about 500, 800. I know that we have dedicated 2,000 viewers here when, whoever is interested in trading the European session. If you want Eurex, go and into the feature voting and just upvote it, right? Add Eurex products to Topstep, upvote it, then we're going to have it. Without that, this is still a small number of people requesting it.
Correct.
Yeah, so you got to do some heavy lifting, guys. Not just us over here.
A little bit of work.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of work. Click a few buttons. That's all we need. Yeah. All right, let's have a look at this gold trade that is a little bit suspect now. I'm just going to have a look at some options levels to see whether we have something interesting there. So I have I have this high volume area at 26.35. Now that's interesting because if we manage to get over that, that usually signals that the gamma exposure kind of flips from positive to negative or from negative to positive. So it can cause some moves to actually accelerate, and then we would have some room up to 26.45.
Yeah.
But right now that's not really happening because we're running out of steam right around the value low for London. Now, value low in London, I've got at 26.32.4. And frogs in my throat as well, which is always the case in the morning. So yeah, for now, we tried to go higher. We failed the auction. So if I go on the 30-minute chart, the initial balance, now I have to do this manually because we don't yet have the dedicated TPO profile on here.
Right.
All right, so this yellow rectangle, that's the initial balance. And we just slightly popped out of it. And now we're seeing some buying wicks as well. So I don't actually like this price action, the way it's looking. Whenever I'm looking at a failed auction, first I would like to see a bigger extension. I see we have weekly kickoff level from Hogue at 26.36 as well. So that could be an inflection point or a reversal point, depends on how we're assaulting it. Right now we're below it. And it was a weekly kickoff low. So I would actually guess that maybe shorts would be a better idea. Just looking at the daily chart as well, we are in a bit of a sell-off mode, pullback maybe. But if we do manage to get some committed movement above initial balance and above that 26.35 area into 26.36 weekly kickoff formal low, then we may have a sustained auction. But for now, I'm going to stick away from the value acceptance. What do you reckon, Ray?
Yeah, I think that seems like fair based on what I've seen on the UK initial balance here. It doesn't seem like there's much of an extension above it. So if anything, I would say more of a failed auction.
Yeah.
To the downside seems to be the operative. I'm seeing a lot of overlap on the 8AX indicator, not really giving me any sort of direction. I have the positive DI and negative DI just kind of overlapping, similar to what I was saying about VWAP, right? So not giving us really any kind of directional bias in either way. So
welcome to London.
More of a rangy kind of feel anyway.
Yes, welcome to London, I said.
Yes.
It's very, very different from New York. New York is all like, action, craziness, lots of movement. And then, you come to London and it's like few ticks up, few ticks down. Yeah, so it is a different feel.
Yeah, one thing I have done, and this is something that I've kind of maybe introduced, is I do a little bit sometimes overnight trade. So if I do get to an extreme level like ADR or what have you, I'll put up micros together, and then I'll sleep overnight and watch it work while I'm not in front of my portal. Because I don't know about you, sometimes I feel like I sabotage myself by watching it too closely.
Yeah, same.
I'm often better off just letting the trade play out while I'm, sleeping and coming back to the trade.
Yeah,
So,
overmanagement is a big problem for many people. Like I said, I have a bit of an opposite problem where, I kind of tend to come from that swing trade. That was my natural state. So
right,
for the first 5 years, I just did swing trading. And
right,
you have to let things play out. And then you
right.
also learn, you do remember well that I teach that time is a level.
Yes,
Well, very frequently sessions will be chasing each other. So whatever one session does, the next session comes in, they reverse that. And as a
correct.
swing trader, you kind of have to learn how to live through those pullbacks. So as long as
Mhm.
the pullback is not like terrifyingly massive,
Right.
which can happen during New York, obviously,
Yes.
then you may have something, so you have a trade that can last for a couple of weeks, but you have to sit out the pullback. So you have to like
Correct.
really not do anything and try to not overmanage. Maybe you have a
Yeah.
larger time frame, a 4 hour chart that you're referencing so you don't freak out. And that's actually one of the things that can help people stay in trades longer. So rather than going on a 100 tick chart and freaking out on every pullback, every slowdown,
Yes.
what you can do once the trade is in profit, let's say you've caught a runner, you're
Mhm.
looking at 35 ticks profit. Well, at that point, you go up to a 30-minute time frame
Yeah.
and see how the 30-minute candle finishes. Don't keep staring at, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30
No.
seconds. That's a sure way to get yourself out of a trade.
Yeah.
So while it's my strength, it's also my weakness because
Mm.
sometimes I'm sitting there watching it, it's turning around, I see it, I know it's the time of day, like Euro close, and I still don't close it. So I caught myself doing that a few times this year, and
Mhm.
now I'm just going back to just really following the rules. Like anything, your mindset will go up and down. It's not a linear
Right.
process by any means.
Right.
And you always have to keep tabs on it. And whenever something, for example, I haven't traded London with the live streams ever. I had my live streams during the New York session. But, I don't think I've ever done a live stream for London, especially not for these products. So I usually trade
Right.
DAX. And it's usually just me. I'm by myself. I just do
Yeah.
my one trade, sometimes no trade.
Mhm.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And now it's like, oh, I have to, let's find a trade. And it's like, it's great.
Yeah.
But sometimes London simply doesn't offer a
I,
good
I,
trading
I would say
opportunity.
that mindset, that's one thing I kind of resonate with what you said there is probably one of the biggest things that I find myself continuously trying to work on,
Mm-hmm.
right? The processes and things and strategies that are easy to follow,
Mm-hmm.
right? But getting your mindset around and executing at a level consistently is probably the biggest challenge that I've had over the span of me trading. So it's underutilized. I do a lot of things, around that, with meditation, starting at the
Mm-hmm.
start of the day, trying to get myself really grounded on my processes. And if I feel like I'm strained, putting myself in a penalty box or things of that nature. So yeah,
I
mindset
don't.
is probably something that's one thing I talk quite a bit about with my stop hunter
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, so if you guys haven't checked out the VIP, obviously they run the link through the main broadcast. There will be Coach Hoop, I think he's about to have another group of
correct,
VIPs. Yeah, that's
correct.
right. Because I
Yeah.
haven't I've been like traveling and stuff, so I haven't
Yeah, no,
actually
I
been
haven't met
able.
him either.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. So Coach Hoop is gonna be running another VIP group. So if you're interested in
Mhm.
joining the VIP, just keep an eye during the main broadcast. They post the link several times a day.
Yep.
Usually Eddie is the one who does that. So keep an
Yep.
eye out if you are interested. It's such a great concept, such a great
Hmm.
idea,
Hmm.
and Coach Ray has his stop hunters, and you
Yes.
have Monique. I think she's very good, isn't she?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's like
Actually,
consistently there
I
at
don't
number
think
one.
I've actually. Yeah, I don't think I've actually even spoken to Monique.
Really?
Monique is really, really, I guess, just working on her own in most cases.
Right.
But the thing that resonates with me the most with this group is they don't come to me talking about strategies or hey, is there some sort of fancy indicator that's going to help me get to trade?
Hmm.
It's all about, hey, how do I control my mindset? How do I get my mindset in the right place to execute trades? Which I find
Yeah.
fascinating because that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to consistently work on for myself. I pick up all kinds of reading material around mindset and controlling my mindset. I love listening to the psychologist. I can't remember his name at the moment, but
Well,
um,
there's two. There's Jared Tandler. I love Jared, but we actually
yeah,
have Brett Steenbarger, who I
yeah,
love as
Steenbarger is
well.
the one.
He's
Yeah,
coming on to Topstep again. So let me just
uh-huh.
see when. I think it's the 15th, I believe.
Yeah, I was part of a session with him one time, and yeah, so I can't get enough of mindset
Yeah.
kind of discussions. So I'm always looking for material along those lines because I feel like that's probably the biggest thing that's consistently holds me back.
Yeah, I think that's true for everyone. No matter how good you are, there's always going to be things in your life that might throw you off, and
Hmm.
it might be something that happens either with your loved one, or for me, I have 8 dogs, so sometimes one of them starts throwing up, and it
Yeah,
just totally throws me off, right? And then you come
correct.
back and you're trying to trade again. You're like, oh, what was I trying to do? Oh,
Hmm.
sustained auction. Let me go into that, and then you're like,
Yeah,
smack, and I'm like, why did I just do that trade?
right,
Like, well,
right.
what's that all about? So you always have to be almost like on the lookout for your mindset slipping. And Brad
Correct.
Steenbarger always says, don't look for trades, look for understanding. And that really resonates with me, because
Yeah,
before you get involved, make sure that, whether you want to be a buyer or a seller, make sure you
yeah,
have a level. Many of
yeah,
us just get chopped up completely, like you said, Ray.
right,
You do a whole bunch of stupid trades on the way to the level that you really have an edge at,
correct.
and then you arrive there, you already had a bunch of paper cuts, maybe even a DLL, and suddenly you're like, oh, the level is there and it does exactly what it needs to do, but you're
Exactly.
not in because you did a whole bunch of stupid trades
Yeah,
in the run up to it. So yeah,
yeah,
Brett is coming back to Topstep TV on the 15th of October, and he's going to be on at 11 a.m. Central.
excellent.
He's going to be doing the Ask Me Anything session via
Oh,
yeah. So it's going to be Trading Mindset, Ask Me Anything, and it's going to
excellent,
be Anne Marie and Hogue doing the interview. So it's going to be
excellent.
good.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I think along those kind of lines is the thing that I find traders doing a lot of is they trade their equity or trade their dollar, right? They're constantly looking at their P&L. They see that they're
Yeah.
in a loss and immediately think that they have to kind of recoup that money over the next 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, I've been
And
struggling with the opposite problem, where that I have my own account, it's much bigger cash, and then somehow it's never enough for me. And
correct,
whenever you're kind of starting with a new XFA or whatever, because I don't know how much people know, but whenever you get like some amount of money in your XFA, that will get transferred over to your live. They
correct,
consolidate it. So,
correct.
they just won't allow too many of the traders that they have live to keep staying on the XFAs.
Hmm.
And, I think you might have heard Nick for a tick say that. So every time there's like 10K in it, it will
Yep,
get transferred over. And it's
yep,
just, it's just how it is. They want live traders to be live, right?
correct, correct.
It's good for the company, it's good for the industry, it's good for
Yeah,
everybody,
absolutely.
and they simply wouldn't want profitable traders to stay on XFAs. Like, it doesn't make
Correct,
sense, right?
correct.
But at the same time, that means that you may have to have another lot of XFAs. If you're copy trading, for example, you
Mm,
have to get another set of XFAs off the ground, and
correct,
you just can't go large on them because you're not going to
correct,
live 3 days. So
correct.
that's the thing that I'm struggling with. And then every time I'm making like $200 or 220, I can do
Right.
that easily, but then it's never enough. So you're
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
I'm just gonna keep trading, and then you kind of like give it back, and you're like, why did I do
yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's process over equity, in my humble opinion, right? If you do your processes well and you execute your edge well, then the dollars will come, right? There's
Yeah,
no need to go
absolutely.
the way around. So,
Yeah, yeah. All right, we have some more questions.
hmm,
What's the benefit or downside of using ADR versus ATR? All right, so the only difference between those two is that ATR takes in the gap as the range as well. So let's say after the weekend, something opens with a gap. The ATR indicator is going to count that as the busted ADR, right? So it's like you have no more range. Whereas ADR will not take in the gap as a calculation and will start afresh. So
hmm,
depending on how you look at things, you might find that that one or the other is useful to you. Let's say you
Yep.
might be looking at a gap fill. Well, then
Yep.
ATR is going to show you that we had a busted range, and then maybe a gap fill is on the cards, right? But for me, I prefer the ADR. Purely because it doesn't take the gap into consideration, starts the calculation at the start of the session that you're looking at,
Yep.
and then just does whatever it's going to do. So for me, it's always had more use. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, this was a concept that I picked up actually in working with you, Dee. Prior to that, I wasn't really looking at ranges. I was so focused on candle movements. And candle movements, as you know, sometimes entice you to do things that you shouldn't, right? So,
Yeah, especially if
um,
you're going into the exhausted ADR and then you're like,
correct,
but it
correct,
worked. It was a breakout. Yeah,
correct.
but the algorithmic ranges say no.
No, that's not a good place. But I used to
Yeah.
find myself taking longs right into ADR, right? ADR high or something like
I
that,
mean,
or
which can
taking in a
work at
short.
once in a blue moon, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes you get a
right,
breakout, single direction day, and it just goes, and then it
right,
ignores all of those because you're in a higher volatility day. But those typically
right.
happen around events like like post FOMC, or you had
Yeah,
CPI, PPI, some of the bigger
yeah,
releases that can
yeah,
actually act as a catalyst.
yeah. Or even inventories, right? So,
Inventories, yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, recently
yeah,
we've had that.
yeah.
All right, let's have a look at some more questions. Can you ask Coach Ray how to use the initial balance in futures? Well, it's the same way, isn't it?
Yeah, initial balance for me is kind of the start of the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
I think again, it's something that I've kind of picked up in working with you, and I think to some degree, Coach Hogan. The idea is that if you want to, I always comment about chop suey, right? It says I like chop suey to eat, not in my trading, right? So if I'm in an area where I think there's going to be a lot of chop, in my humble opinion, is inside initial balance,
Yeah.
then why should I be executing trades inside an area where I know historically has been an area that's going to be a lot of overlap in price, a lot of indecision in this area. So I use really the edges of this initial balance range to make a determination. Do I go with it? Do I go with it? What on the direction of wherever it breaks, or do I look for an opportunity to reverse that? Right. So I've been using that, and that's and made simplified my trading quite a bit, because I don't look at any random level. I look at these specific levels, and it's not just me. And I think that's the key, right? There's market participants that are looking at those levels quite closely. And what better way than to be looking at areas where big players are looking as well, right? So,
Yeah, so let's break that down a little bit more for people. So when we say, oh, there's a lot of chop suey during the initial balance, it's because market makers they are the most active during that first hour. They
mhm,
have to get all of their orders in, they have to get their volumes in, and that's when they do most of their work. And what that brings is very sketchy directional movements or lack
yeah,
thereof,
yeah,
because they're not really interested in taking prices to any particular levels unless you've already had like one of the big catalysts. Then it's a different thing. And then you have those big institutional players that do want to take the price somewhere specific,
correct.
to express their views in light of, let's say, interest rate cuts, for example. That's what we had last time, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why you saw these extended moves, literally right after that went. Pretty much throughout the entire night and carried on for the next day. So again,
Right.
those were the once in a blue moon trades that do have a clear catalyst to them. And then similarly in crude oil, we had the Middle East conflict, which again caused extended movement in the single direction. But those are not things that you can expect every single day. People catch a runner, like Mick says, you caught a tiger by the tail, but they don't fully understand
Yeah.
the events that surrounded that event, and
Yeah.
then they try and look for that every single day, and then they
Yeah.
keep fading. It's something we see a lot on Topstep. So you have one big day, and then data loss limit, data loss limit. Why? Because they're chasing P&L. Again, going
Correct.
back to what we were talking, right?
Correct. I call it
So
Bigfoot sightings. I'm always
yes,
looking for
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot sightings.
Yes, I love that because I
Yeah,
have my lizard ambush predators. You know, the
right,
most non-threatening ambush predator ever.
right, right.
That's why I have the lizard on
Yeah.
as my mascot. There he is.
Yeah, I mean, it
Um,
just helps structure my view of the market. I
yeah,
would say, it gives me a framework of which areas I should be focusing on. So, like for example, what's going on with gold right now? I guess I can play a trade to the other side of initial balance, right? But I don't know. I could also wait to
price.
see if I
Yeah,
get
but price
a more
action.
definitive,
To
yeah,
me,
more
price action
definitive.
doesn't look right.
Correct, correct.
Because you don't want to see wicks. If you see these wicks on a 30-minute chart, to me that indicates almost like passive buying.
Yeah,
And if I look at the volume profile POC, which can be used for these purposes, we're having trouble. We're building volume
correct.
right where these buyers keep stepping in. So until
Yeah,
we break that, there's no trade here. But at the
correct,
same time, the initial balance is not too large. So even if I
correct.
wait for that, we might have 35 ticks to play with.
Yeah,
So again, we have to find. I'm very selective with the opportunities that I take, and it's
yeah,
not that I'm always right. I'm not. Generally, if you take all of the things that I trade, I probably float around 43 to 53%. However, on crude oil and gold, I'm pretty bloody accurate. So I actually have about 70% accuracy
yeah,
there. So
yeah,
I'm not wrong a lot. But that's
yeah,
why, because we look at
yeah.
very specific things, and if you want to look for bigger moves, you really need the other time frame participants to step in
Correct.
and to drive this outside of the initial balance with some confidence. Until that happens, there's no trade.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to be consistent in trading, you need to do consistent things, right? If
Yeah,
you're inconsistently doing things, how can you expect consistent results?
yeah,
So,
yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
Goldfinger says, I thought you used the first hour of trading for IB and not 1.5 hours. Yes, so you use the 1 hour for the IB, but think about this. When are you going to have the actual signal for whether we've actually failed the auction or whether we exited the auction? The following 30 minutes. So,
Correct.
this is why I start London session an hour and a half into it, because I never really
Yeah.
trade the initial balance. There's only
Right.
maybe once in a blue moon opportunity where I might see the price reversing from just underneath the value area or something, and I might trade that. But even so, later on in the day, you will still have another opportunity if that's really true, either from the
Correct.
break of initial balance, if it's a true
Yeah.
directional move, or from maybe a failure of the auction later on around the same level. So there are options.
Yeah.
So I never really rush things, and I always just go, okay, well, let's just wait out the 1 hour and a half. Why? Because I'm going to see where the first 30 minutes outside of the initial balance finishes. So that's why
Right.
I start this so late, right?
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
there's a fair number of people that do opening range trades, right?
Yeah.
For 5 minute, 1 minute,
Yeah.
15 minute. And that's just not my style of trading, right? I've kind of grown to accustomed to kind of waiting out that period,
Yeah.
letting the market kind of do what it wants to do, figure out the levels, and then at that point, once I get some sort of initiative behavior, that's when I want to start in. If I get a move outside the initial balance, I want to make note of that, right? I
Yeah.
want to see how that reacts. I want to see I want to see the ADX and the volume delta to see how that is being received on that indicator to see
Yeah.
whether this is going to be a sustain or
Yeah.
whether this is one of these kind of bait and switch, right? So
Yeah. Bait and switch. I like that. That's like the failed auction.
yes, yes,
Bait and switch setup.
yeah.
David Atkinson says, how are you determining your levels? By profile? I use a combination of profile, supply and demand, ADR and ASR, which is kind of my twist on the ADR, using just a session and
Hmm.
hours and RTH.
Hmm.
And then I also look at some options levels as well. I've always had the options expiry levels as my level of interest, especially for after 10 a.m. cut. So that's basically forex options that used to have a big knock-on effect on gold and crude oil because they're forex linked, right?
Hmm.
But these days we're actually getting a lot more zero DTE options flows affecting the prices. And right now, as of July the 23rd, we actually have bi-weekly crude oil options.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so this is something new that they introduced so that the market participants can express their views in light of the ever-changing things that we've had this year about the, we have the elections, we have the Middle East, we have the
Yeah, yeah,
supply issues, then overproduction, then it's like,
right.
which one is it? And they decided that they needed to offer the market participants more flexibility. So now instead of
Mm.
the one monthly expire, we actually have two bi-weekly options that
Oh,
happen
wow.
on Tuesday and Thursday. And that's why now you see Tuesdays and Thursdays have the biggest moves, and then Wednesdays and Mondays they're like, nah, it's just like not really much happening. So
Yeah,
take that into consideration. It's a very useful thing.
yeah,
But yeah, I now use Mentor Q to get some levels on options activity just to have them on my chart. And
yeah,
although options flows can change throughout the day, just having them at the beginning of the day, just as a ballpark where the interest was, that can actually be really helpful too.
yeah.
So that's how I do my levels. So I think Coach Ray does something slightly different
Yeah,
but similar.
yeah. I have the initial balance. I also
Yeah.
have settlement price here in orange.
Mm-hmm.
These orange dots here is settlement, right? So settlement price for me serves as a bit of a magnet to price,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it gets extended, similar to my anchored VWAP and daily VWAP. I've used anchored VWAP on, how do you say, from say London. Let's say I'm trading the New York session. I will look at whatever direction it's moved from in London. And at the start of that, usually I would get some sort of inflection. So I like drawing my anchored VWAP at those levels.
So you use
And that helps me.
London lows and highs, yeah?
Correct,
Right.
correct.
Okay.
And that gives me kind of a sense, or a kind of more of a sentiment kind of thing, not so much a indicator. But if we're above, right, then we should be thinking long, right? And if we're below, we should be thinking. I say thinking short, right?
Yeah.
And then it becomes a little bit easier. Now it's just a matter of focusing in on a good level
Mm-hmm.
where you can manage your risk to execute your trades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
So
pretty good.
So,
Right.
and then,
Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of the same things you looked at. I mean, I used to joke with you, I think when I first started, around VWAP. Um, I used to have a phrase with "Have you hugged your VWAP
Yeah,
recently?" type of
yeah.
thing.
You gotta
I
hug your
used to want
VWAP,
to be
man.
reversion
That's yeah.
type of trade.
Especially if you're trading equities, you gotta hug your VWAPs.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, be
So
kind to your VWAPs. Yeah.
be kind to your VWAP. Yeah, I mean, even here in gold, you see that little reaction away
Yeah,
from
yeah,
VWAP, right?
yeah.
You know,
Gold has gotten a lot more sensitive to VWAP. I use the overnight to kind of gauge where we are, whether there's like enough
hmm
juice in the move.
hmm
And right now we're still getting those passive buyers. So, and yet I have a failed auction. So until
yeah,
that changes, I've got nothing to do here. Like
right,
there is the session VWAP that is reactive. I can see that on my other charts. And it's having trouble going further away from it. So right now we're
right,
kind of glued at the session VWAP, but we're above overnight VWAP. I
correct.
start my overnight at the open the previous night for me, so that's
Yeah.
11 p.m. my time.
Yeah.
And the session VWAP I start on whatever session we begin. Now I haven't used anchored VWAP much. I have been watching it because I know that Brian Shannon was talking about how he uses it. So right now I'm not really using that. I'm just watching it. And for now, I see that it's mostly for directional trades. And, a lot of my trades are actually to do with a failed auction and stuff. So for me right now, I'm not that involved with that.
Yeah.
But I can see the use for it. If something's breaking out, you have like a sustained auction or something. I can definitely see that as a supportive factor.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I mean,
let's
the
see.
idea is instead of paying retail, I used to recall to talk about paying retail and paying at a discount.
Yes. Yeah,
Then
exactly.
anchor VWAP or daily VWAP is kind of an area where we can consider discount. Yeah, I'm hesitate to say discount because we never really paid a discount, right? But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of the premise of supply and demand as well. I
hmm
see a question here. Can you please go over how you find your supply and demand levels and zones? Well, we
Ah,
can probably spend like 6 hours on that. But
yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
bit of a loaded question.
Yeah.
But let's see if I can. I mean, gold is not going to be good for this because it's got just up, up, and up. So you need something that is a little more fluid. Okay, here we go. So let's look at crude oil here. So crude oil, how do you look at supply and demand zones? Well, you need to find the obvious highs and lows first and foremost. And on this particular time frame, this is daily chart, here's a low and here's a high. What are you looking for? You're looking for a move away from those zones. So not just like, oh, we made it, because this is not a supply yet. It's a potential future supply if we manage to move away from it. But for now, it's just a slowdown. It could be just a speed bump before it goes higher. At this point, we don't know. But what we do know is that we had some buyers that stepped in around about 66.37, and then they created a demand by moving the price quite far away from it for multiple periods. That's also something I look for. I don't want to see a demand or a supply that only has one move away and then we kind of come back down to the same level. That weakens the area. And again, it's a loaded question, but the premise is that you're looking at swing extremes and then looking at those as your originating points for buyers or sellers, so demand or supply. That's like the most basic explanation I can give you at this time. But, there's a lot more to it. You can have a quality looking area. You can have a really bad looking area because it's been tested a whole bunch of times or it hasn't stayed away from the level. Like literally, it's such a loaded question that we cannot cover it in a short, few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We have some more levels, more questions and levels. Coach Ray, how do you use your volume delta indicator on TradingView?
Yeah, so
we explained a bit
I
of
use
that.
it as I think I might have highlighted this a
Yeah.
little bit earlier, but the idea is it's kind of like a secondary,
Supportive factor, yeah.
trade management kind of indicator for me. If I am in a directional trade, I want to see that volume is. This is probably not the. I don't trade the daily,
Yeah.
but my main chart is 15-minute chart, right? And what I'm looking for here is every time I change here, I need to figure out a way to do this a little bit better. But what I'm really looking for is I want price for my arrows here, guys. Price to align with whatever's going on with volume, right? And if I can get that kind of to align, what I don't want to see is a divergence, right? What I don't want to see is price going higher and volume going the opposite way, right? That means that my perception of where price can go has the potential of reversing or stalling, right?
So that's the like for example, that's the positive delta that Hogue talks about a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct. Yes. So I'd like to see volume aligned with whatever price direction the market is headed, right? So and preferably I like it to ascend. I want to see more interest coming in. So that's where I use it. I mean, if I see this kind of action going like this in the middle, I'm not really interested in any sort of directional trade. There's really nothing to do here, right?
Very difficult,
other than to lose your combine.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
A lot of paper cuts.
Yeah,
Oops.
exactly.
MLM.
So I like getting in areas like this because this is more sustained. And then it supports, again, it's mainly there to support my management of my trade once I'm in a trade. In and of itself, it doesn't really do much, right? But
so you already have to have an idea of what you want to do, and then you manage it via volume delta.
Correct. Similar to the ADX as well, right? The idea is that if I get like this green line kind of crossing above the negative, and then I get an ascending ADX line, well, that is giving me confidence that maybe this moves to the upside has some legs, right?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so if you ever wondered how Hogue uses it, I'm pretty sure he uses it in the similar way. So he looks at volume delta, and then he goes, hey, guys, I know that we're going down, but we have negative delta. That's what he means.
Correct.
There's a divergence between what's happening and who's actually driving the moves. It's
Correct.
basically bottom pickers who just keep getting run
Yeah.
over. So they're aggressive buyers that are not successful, but they're contributing to negative delta. And then at some point, you are in, like, the more that negative delta grows whilst you're still falling, it means that you can get that short squeeze back up that is really violent, especially
Correct.
towards the end of the move. Those are actually some of my favorite equities trades. I don't really trade equities much during the, the normal sort of trading hours, but for the last hour, I always look for like short squeezes, and I love those. They're so juicy,
absolutely.
so aggressive, and
So
so juicy.
it's really a secondary indicator for me. It's not a primary. I have to have an idea based on some of the things that I'm looking at above, right? And then I look at this to see, okay, is it aligned with my view, or am I in one of these ranges where I'm seeing a lot of overlap? Probably not an area I want to be in for a very extended period of time if I don't start to see a pattern of higher highs and higher lows, I guess, to some degree on my histogram, right?
All right, so we have some more questions in relating to the initial balance. What time frame do you use for initial balance? Time frame, I like to use 30-minute candles. So not just the 1 hour, but I also want to see how the first half hour went and how the second half hour went. And in some cases, that can actually show me whether we have maybe a committed directional move, or whether we're doing the normal thing where the first half hour goes one way, second half hour goes the other way. If I'm looking at something like a value rejection, let's say we open in balance and then it pushes out. Typically, a true value rejection will have two directional moves during the initial balance. So that's why I don't like to just use, the full 1 hour, but instead I want to go a little bit more granular. And I mean, some people that I know that also use the initial balance, they go even further. They use 4 15-minute candles.
Right.
And that's usually if you're more like a scalper type person. I'm not. And I only scalp if it's a range bound day. Otherwise, I will look for bigger chunks of the move. Okay, so we have Mark O saying, Dee, I do not see average daily range on Topstep. Do you have it on your X platform? No, we don't, unfortunately. So I still use my main charting package with like Blatek indicators. What we do have Blatek DR doing all of that. We have been talking with my software team to maybe create the ADR or Blatek DR for Topstep. But we're still kind of talking it through, and I've got a lot of things on my plate because we got like the whole series 3, and then I'm moving house, and it's just like a whole bunch of stuff that's happening right now. So I do need to sit down and actually see how we're gonna do it, because it's a different language from what we normally use. But yeah, so we are thinking about it. But for now, we don't have the ADR and ASR indicator in Topstep.
And so a lot along the lines of what you were talking about, your DAX. When are we going to trade DAX? Well, we need folks to kind of upvote it, right?
Exactly.
Right. Encourage people to do that.
And same thing, if you want the ADR in Topstep, create a post and upvote it. That's how we do things here. So you can be a part of the development of Topstep platform, but you want to see a change, you got to work for it. So we have to work as a community to try and push some of these things that are important to us to the priority list, and that's the only way to do it.
Now we have the Topstep X indicator, which I believe has a number of levels. It has both weekly levels, among other things. It just doesn't have ADR or ASR.
It doesn't. Yeah,
right?
Here it is. So
but it does have the other items.
So I have weekly kickoff low, weekly kickoff high, always in my chart, because those are hogs levels that I like to have, because they are A, scarily accurate, and B, they're just useful levels, because he looks at similar things. He looks at open interest, he looks at volume profile, TPO profile, options levels as well. And the reason why they're scarily accurate is because he looks at all of those, and then he says also some chicken bones come into it, and whiskey. Which I mean, you
can definitely do a lot worse for yourselves, guys.
Oh,
I mean,
God,
I think these items here, you have about 9 items here that will serve you well in your trading as reference levels where you can manage your risk. So I wouldn't get, I guess, wrapped around the axle so much about ADR or ASR necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, you have 9 levels here that
Yeah.
probably you had 9 more than you ever had before. So
Exactly. Yeah, and they're something that all larger institutional participants will look at. Last week's high, yesterday's high. Now, value high and value low, I find that they only put them in for the New York session, and that's why I don't have them on my chart, because I have the
yeah,
London-related levels,
yeah,
which they don't have this early in the day as well. Because I think JD does these, and
yes,
obviously he's asleep, so it wouldn't be very fair of me. Hey, JD, can you put down London
yeah,
levels for
exactly. You
me?
put the value area high levels for
Like
me.
Slack. JD, wake
Exactly,
up.
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
So
the only reason why I don't have those. And then I also have obviously a dedicated charting platform where I have a whole bunch of stuff that's already here. But if you're using Topstep, you want to use it as a main charting platform, there are your levels. Here's rate settlement. So settlement, very, very good for certain products. It
correct.
does act as a magnet.
Yes.
And even from there, like once you're at settlement, if you have like an outer value edge or something as confluence, it
Hmm.
can actually be a pretty good starting point for a trade. So make
Yes.
sure you have all of these
Yes.
mapped out rather than
Yeah.
just having one VWAP and nothing else as a reference point. There's a much better way of doing things.
Yeah. Like I said, you can do a lot worse for yourselves, guys. I
Yeah.
mean, I think if you go to this level of detail, you put yourself in so much a better place than maybe you've had in the past.
Yeah, and here's another question about delta. Hey Dee, how do you guys calculate delta? Is there a way Topstep can make delta value? I believe they're working on it. Robert Cooney will probably be a better person to ask that, but I do know that that's been bumped up to the top because Hogue uses it. I think Nick for a Tick uses it. Ray
Yeah.
uses it. Like there's a whole bunch of people at Topstep that do use that. So
Yeah.
I think it's on the way. I do believe it's on the
Yeah.
way. Steve says, any thoughts on oil, team? So oil for me would be maybe a sell, but not right now. And right now, this move that I'm seeing for London is clashing with that. Let me change my chart. Or
Yeah. So
Ray, do you wanna have a
yeah.
look? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at this right now. I mean, for me, it looks like it's kind of almost a little sustained option to the upside.
It is, yeah.
Right? I mean, we have a break of initial balance. I mean, I do see that we have ADR above, but
One
I
thing that
don't
I'm
see any.
not liking is the daily chart bearish engulfing that we're hitting.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so if
Yeah,
you
the
look
15.
here.
Yeah, it's always good to look at the higher time frame and see what's going on to the higher time frame.
So this is why I'm
But
thinking if we cannot go above 74.42, 74.42 is the edge of the daily supply.
okay,
And I want to see a committed move into it before I do anything.
gotcha,
Otherwise, that is a point where I deem we should see some sellers.
gotcha.
On the options activity, I don't really have anything all the way up to 75.
Yeah,
So I don't know. For me, 75 shorts would be something I
yeah,
would be looking at today.
yeah. I can
Yeah.
see that because we have ADR at 74. At least here I have 74.80,
Yeah.
74.90,
Yeah.
and then 75 somewhere in the middle of this red area. So yeah, if you wanted
Yeah.
to set up an alert for that,
Mm-hmm.
that would be kind of a very, how we say, predator location.
Yes. So instead of chasing,
Correct.
you would have a level in mind where you want to be either a buyer or seller, not both.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that way you stop yourself from flipping and flopping. So 75 is definitely my area on the upside.
Yeah.
Now to the downside, I do have sort of like 72, 75 as an area of interest. And there I could maybe look for either longs intraday or maybe even further shorts, depends on how the day looks at that point.
Yeah.
But until we get to these big levels, predatory levels, as Ray calls them, I don't really want to get involved. So I don't think I'm going to be doing any London trades today. I'm having a pretty decent week. I want to save the profits into the end of the week and only get
absolutely.
involved with high probability trades.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we are coming to the end of the session. So maybe we have time for one more question if you guys want to throw it at us, and then we're going to be out.
Yeah.
But yeah. So those were the thoughts on oil. Let's have a look at chat as well. Let's see. Anything interesting?
The Dow.
Somebody's saying, Dee, how much furniture can you move with a Mini Cooper?
How much?
Not Not much, I will tell you. Yeah, especially not because I actually have cages in the back. So my Mini Cooper is a two-seater, so you can't even like open the back things.
Yeah.
Obviously, whenever you're moving, presumably you hire a company to move your stuff, right? You don't move it in a Mini Cooper, but that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do much moving in my Golf TDI either. So guys, you can't fit much in the Golf TDI. I think it's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
equal to a Mini Cooper. So
Yes, exactly. They're pretty
yeah,
much same size, aren't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of sitting looking something. This is not probably a time frame or time that I would do this, but it's kind of interesting what's forming here in the Dow here over on the right.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of a double bottom, W pattern kind of developing here.
So here's a question for you, Ray. Would that be more like a Dolby style range, or would you be looking for like a breakout?
That would be more something I would look at maybe back to that daily VWAP.
I
That would
see.
be more of
Okay,
a mean
interesting.
reversion type of kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, or
We
maybe up to settlement price, something along those lines.
Okay, we have a couple more questions before we sign off. Ultimate
Yeah.
Gamer says, "Can you ask Coach Ray to find order blocks perfect that sellers and buyers fight for the place?" So I think he's just looking for areas where maybe the line in the sand, so sellers and buyers fighting. That would be
Yeah.
an,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, so the initial balance high, initial balance low are those levels, right?
yeah,
Supply and demand, also another one of those levels, value area high, value area low. Those are
yeah,
those levels, right? So
yeah. So those would be lines in the
maybe even some
sand.
of the levels. Sorry.
Those would be lines in the sand where either or. So you might have the
Correct.
value, like outer value edge can act as a reversal, but it can also give way to a value acceptance trade. So it would
Correct.
be one of those.
Correct.
Same thing with initial
Correct.
balance edges. It can
Correct.
give way to a sustained auction. And, you
Yeah.
know, as ICT traders call the displacement outside of the first hour of trading, or it can be a failure of that. So it's a line in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with Hoag's levels, right? Weekly
Yes.
kickoff high, weekly kickoff
Inflection.
low,
Yeah.
right? So those
Yeah.
are just lines in the sand.
Yeah.
There's not like set in stone that they're going to reverse,
Yeah.
but it's a good area to look.
Yeah. Final question, Coach Ray, what time is your daily class on Discord?
What time is my daily class
Yeah.
on Discord?
Yeah.
Let's see. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time.
5
No.
p.m. Eastern time. Okay, there you
Yeah,
go.
no, sorry.
No?
Yeah, no, 5 p.m.
5
I want to
p.m.
say 4 p.m. It's 4 p.m. for me, Pacific, but
Okay.
that's I think translates to 7 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Is it 2? Okay. So hold on.
7 p.m. Eastern time.
So are you only 2 hours for difference from New York then? Is that
I'm actually on the West Coast. So the session starts for me at 4 o'clock
Okay.
Pacific. So it'd be 7 p.m. Eastern time.
All
Yeah.
right.
6 p.m. Central. I'm always having to waffle between these time zones
Yeah, me
here in the
too.
States.
Yeah, I'm the
It's
same.
very difficult sometimes. Even when I do my presentations, I'm always talking in Eastern time, and I live in the West
Same.
Coast. So
Same.
it's
I
so-
live in
it's so-
GMT, like totally unrelated, and yet for some reason I'm always talking
doing
in
these
Eastern.
mental
Yeah.
gymnastics in my mind, and often don't get it right. So
Yeah, same here. People ask me, "What time is your London session in Eastern?" And I'm like, "Is it 3? No, 3:30 is Central, 4:30." And then I look like a complete muppet. It's like, but that's because
Yeah.
we're trying to translate through 3 different time zones, and for you,
Correct.
you have the Pacific as well. So it's like,
Correct.
ah.
correct.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. I think this
Yeah,
was
you're welcome.
this was very pleasant and very good to see you here.
Likewise.
I do believe we're going to be making this into a semi-permanent thing. So you'll
Yeah.
be joining me on Thursdays. Yeah, very
Yeah.
happy to hear that. Hopefully, our viewers found value in this. Maybe next time we can find a trade. Today is not really looking that great. And if you can see on crude oil, we actually do have some sellers stepping in now from that area of
Gold seems to
supply.
be picking up here a little bit.
Yeah, gold could move into the overlap. That is one
Yeah.
thing that it does. But I usually manage to find a gold trade towards the end of the stream, which tells you how active London is. All
Yes.
right. So thank you so much for being here. Guys, don't forget we have some other broadcasts after the main broadcast ends. So we have Coach Jay and Coach Paul with At the Buzzer. Very good segment. Do check it out. Until next week, I'm going to bid you farewell. I actually do have another appearance today on Pass with the Pros, I think it is, and it's standing in for Marcus Talking with Dee. So I will see you at 1 p.m. Central. Until then, Coach Ray, do you have any words of wisdom for us to end the session?
Yeah, stick to your process. Yeah, stick to your processes, stick to your edge, and equity that you seek will come.
Excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget to click on like and subscribe to support the London session. And I will see you guys a little